Good morning. We have a big show today, the most important part of which is this. I don't think you have heard it yet. Yes, the 30-minute audio recording of the suspect in the IVF clinic bombing from Friday in Palm Springs, California. This 25-year-old suspect is thought to have died in the blast. His name was Guy Edward Bartkus. And I have fallen into a rabbit hole, so you did not have to. So what we will be doing is at the top of the hour at 9 o'clock, we are going to play that video. But in anticipation of that, let me tell you right now a brief synopsis of that conversation. I think let's share some pictures here with you. This is a photo of Guy Edward Bartkus shared by the FBI yesterday being Sunday. However, before the FBI shared this photo of the suspect, there was investigations going on in the press, including certain press organizations who had already alerted us that this was the young man. Now, yesterday, what the FBI said, so let me give you the official story, is that Guy Edward Bartkus, age 25 of 29 Palms, which is located, I think, around 35 miles from Palm Springs, that he is the primary suspect in the Palm Springs bombing. Now, the vehicle he was driving was a silver Ford Fusion sedan, and the FBI provided the plate number in case you know anything about this suspect or anyone involved with him. Now, even before that, on May 17th, which was Friday, we had BNO, a kind of a news reporting service from abroad, already say that they thought they knew that the bomber of California fertility clinic described himself as a pro-mortalist. What is a pro-mortalist? It is what you think it is. It means pro-death. Now, when you listen to the 30-minute audio, however, my friends, he does not describe himself as a pro-mortalist. Instead, he is an anti-natalist. He is against birth and all life and its existence. We'll get to that in a moment. And my analysis from as a lawyer, not as a psychologist, and as a human, how I see what he has said. Now, here is another photo of him that was on BNO and also other news sources, I think more recent than the one the FBI shared. What we also see in some reporting, including from that article, is this. Let me blow this up. In his writings, Guy Edward Bartkus allegedly said he was pro-mortalist, something he described as someone who intends to bring on their own death as soon as possible to prevent your suffering, and more importantly, the suffering your existence will cause to the other sentient beings. We'll get into that. There's more to this. We're going to, of course, hear this because we're going to hear it not to glorify him or his nihilistic ideations and the death cult that he seems to have been a member of, but instead to break down what he thinks is his unbreakable chain of logic. I think that will help others, and I find it fascinating. So let me read you this. In an FAQ section of his website, Guy Edward Bartkus's further explains that his best friend Sophie shared similar views and recently died after convincing her boyfriend to shoot her as she slept. And then he wrote IIRC, and that stands for, if I remember correctly, we had agreed that if one of us died, the other would probably soon follow, Bartkus wrote. His description seemed to match the death of 27-year-old Sophie Tinney in Fox Island, Washington on April 22nd. Police arrested her boyfriend, 29-year-old Lars Eugene Nelson, and believed Tinney convinced Nelson to shoot her in the head as she slept. Nelson was charged with second-degree murder. This is absolutely horrible, especially including his sort of offhand casual IIRC. And there is more. This is now from the New York Times, and this is from last I guess it was from, I think it was from last night. And it says, the suspect, I'm sorry, the story I read you from BNO is from Saturday, not from Friday night. The New York Times story is from last night. The suspect, Guy Edward Bartkus of 29 Palms, California, had nihilistic ideations, authorities said, and had specifically targeted the clinic. And it says they examined, the officials consider an act of terrorism. Okay. And this is the part that I find fascinating. We'll get into it more. This is about this boy's father, Robert Bartkus, who had not seen his son in 10 years since he was a 15-year-old. I've gone down the rabbit hole. I think this father lives in Yucca, California, and he has an interesting Facebook site, which is mostly photos of scantily clad women on his public Facebook page. Mr. Bartkus described his son as having been a boy who liked tinkering with small model rockets and said that in September 2009, at age 9, his son lit the family home on fire while playing with matches. He burned down the house in Yucca Valley, he said. An article about the fire in the high desert star of Yucca Valley said that the family lost everything, though Mr. Bartkus said no one was hurt. His son was placed on juvenile probation, but the incident was later expunged from his record, he said. Mr. Bartkus said that as a teenager, his son would make stink bombs and smoke bombs, nothing major. Okay. What his father, I want to say, also said at one point, which is really telling when we listen to the audio, he said that his son wasn't stupid or his son wasn't dumb. He just was a follower and couldn't think for himself. Now, I got to tell you, regardless of what I ever did in my life or what my children or anyone I love did, I certainly, and especially if they had just died in such a tragic, deranged, and violent event, the last thing I would be doing is insulting him before the press and also revealing when someone says something, well, he's not dumb, he's just a follower. It tells you two things about this father, how much this man detested or thought it was beneath him if someone was not like intelligent, relatively intelligent, and also what an awful thing to say about your son. Sounds like he was a very critical father, and it's no wonder that they did not have a relationship. But there's more. Ideas espoused on the website with the recording about included plans to bomb an IVF clinic, and what an expert, Professor Emeritus and founder of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism, Brian Levin, said is that his ideas are associated with an obscure movement that promotes death and discourages creation of new life. Oh, yes, my friends. Let me tell you, I think I know more about this movement, and let me share this with you. This is how I went down the rabbit hole. It's going to get really creepier in a moment. I promise you. So this was, I obscured the name of this person on Twitter, as well as the person he mentioned, because I did not want to defame anybody. And then let me just read this to you. So the car bomber, Guy Edward Bartkus, is also not left-wing, but he also is not a right-wing evangelical. He lost a friend to suicide as she followed the advice of X. So he then also followed X's teaching about how life is the ultimate evil and should be ended. This is death cult shit. Okay, guys. So I did not want to mention the name of this person that he supposedly followed. I certainly didn't want to accuse someone I don't know and know nothing about as being the motivator for this other person, this young woman, Sophie, to encourage her boyfriend to kill her. However, I have since listened, as you will, to the full 30-minute audio. And yes, my friends, indeed, there is, and this is when it's going to get creepy, but we're going to wait till later in the show. There is someone who is an anti-natalist who is part of something called, I want you to think of this word, write down on a piece of paper the word life, L-I-F-E. And then if you write it in reverse, it's EFIL. It almost rhymes with evil. EFIL, E-F-I-L. The EFIL movement, if you can believe it, is a small, little fringe but deranged movement that believes life itself is inherently evil, and that especially pregnant women deserve to. And here, I just want to give a for the rest of this conversation, and then toward the end of the show, a little trigger warning here. So, under this EFL leaders, one of these EFL leaders' thought processes, pregnant women are the worst because, of course, they are creating life, and they deserve to be killed and raped, if not both. I don't think that this guy does. So just hold on. We are going to get to that at 9 a.m. But speaking of life, let's talk about celebrating life, because I don't know about you. I understand that our time here on this earth is finite, and I want to contribute and enjoy it and avoid pain, but stand up for other people's suffering and justice and watch my children and family flourish. And then what happens next? I'm not sure. I know some religions are in full belief of some kind of heavenly afterlife, maybe the Elysian fields that the Greeks believe in, maybe heaven and hell, if that's your gig. Unfortunately, under Judaism, when I've asked every rabbi, they say, we don't know. So you know what? Instead of unfortunately, I'm going to go with we don't know. And I'm going to go with this is what we have here on earth. Be good to each other. And speaking of that, F cancer. This is Joe Biden. Last night, we all learned, or yesterday afternoon, we all learned that President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with a fairly late stage and aggressive prostate cancer that has metastasized into his bones. And given his age, even if the prognosis was good, it's not as if someone in their 80s has a guaranteed long life anyhow, but we know that he will get the best of treatment. And this comes on the heels of Jake Tapper and a reporter from, I want to say, it's not maybe Axios, publishing a new book about the Biden administration, which has gotten a lot of heat and not so much light, because it seems to be poorly timed. Even before the announcement of his cancer diagnosis, it seems terribly, terribly timed, in that we are dealing with the most mendacious, malevolent, moronic, dangerous presidential administration that we have ever seen. The only good thing to say about Donald Trump is that we are sort of taking the hit for the rest of the world. We now had a wonderful election in Romania of the not fascist presidential candidate. We've had similar successes. People who are pro-democracy in Canada and dodged a bullet in France. So the good thing I can say about Donald Trump is that he is a terrible, terrible example. And it helps. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Joe Biden. So what you may have noticed is in an uncharacteristically, Donald Trump put up a very appropriate post on Truth Social saying that he and Melania wished Joe Biden the best. And number one, that Donald didn't write that. And number two, that of course, what he's really thinking, he knows he can't say because it would be beyond the bounds of propriety, as if that ever mattered to him. So instead, what did he do? His son said the most cruel, disgusting, inhumane thing out loud. And this was what Donald Trump Jr. said on his Truth Social. And he pinned this tweet at the top. What I want to know is, how did Dr. Jill Biden miss the stage 5 metastatic cancer, or is this yet another cover-up? Okay, let's break this down. He's trolling Jill Biden because he knows that she has a PhD in education. She is not a medical doctor. So that's trolling. And even if he thought she was, or he's trying to imply she, an intelligent woman living with him, how could she not know that he would need testing? Well, as we are going to find out, it turns out that when a man is over 70 years old, he no longer gets testing like the PSA blood test for prostate cancer, because at that age, the levels and the size and all these things create a lot of false positives, and the treatment is worse than the very unlikely reality that they actually have prostate cancer. I mean, the treatment and the testing and so on to find out if it really is, the biopsies and so on. So at his age, he probably was not getting regular treatment. He probably only got tested because he saw some symptoms, which is what it sounds like. So the other thing here is, or is this yet another cover-up? The implication here is that Joe Biden had cancer at a very late stage. Apparently, it's only stage 5, not it's only stage 4, not stage 5. That's not the point. The idea is that this was another cover-up because this is the whole Jake Tapper book about Joe Biden's mental decline. Okay, so what do we hear? There were some readers' comments here. What did they say? Readers add context I thought people might know. This is right on. Right on Twitter. Biden's cancer was reported in the New York Times as characterized by a Gleason score of 9, which is grade group 5, which with metastasis to the bone. And Trump Jr. misconstrued this as stage 5 cancer. It's stage 4. Okay. Any other readers' comments though? Yeah. How about this? How about my friend Waj? You know Waj from the Mary Trump Show. How about this? Meanwhile, while we're focused as we should be on wishing Joe Biden a healthy recovery and smooth and painless and not debilitating treatment, shouldn't this be bigger news that Donald Trump slashed cancer research by 31%, according to a Senate report? And also what should be big news here is that that over the weekend, the House committee finally passed the terrible budget bill out of committee that would slash huge amounts of money from Medicaid. And they were able to do this because you might have heard that prior to yesterday, I think it was on Friday, the bill died because the hardline, super conservative Republican says it doesn't cut enough. It does not cut enough from the people, from ordinary people, from mothers and fathers and children and hardworking people, because that is actually of the able-bodied people, the majority of them are either working full or part-time. I have shown you that chart. They wanted more cut. And here we go. Let's look at that chart again. Remember this chart? This is just people who are adults who are able ages 19 to 64 who are not on SSI. They're not on disability payments. 44% work full-time, 20% work part-time. That's 64%. Another 12% are not working because they're caregiving. 10% have a disability. We get another 7% who are in school. So we only have 8% who aren't working because they have retired, which makes sense, or they can't find work or for some other reason. But it wasn't enough. So you heard that these folks wouldn't vote because they wanted more cuts. Well, guess what? They came to the table in the dark of night over the weekend on Sunday and said, you know what? We will show up here. I think it was 4 of them. We'll show up for the committee meeting as we'll vote present. So our votes will create a quorum, but we're not going to vote for it. So it was able to get passed out 17 to 16 from that committee on Republican votes alone, is my understanding. And there's still time to call Congress and register your unhappiness and tell them that we cannot have these cuts. And I know that you probably already know the phone number, but let's remind everyone, 202, the Congressional Switchboard, 202, I'm pulling it up for you because I don't have it right here, 202-224-3121. Again, 202-224-3121. Now, we're almost close to the top of the hour, but we were running slightly behind. So I feel like I need to talk to you about the other major news. We just did law. Now we're going to do some money. Money is the last of the three top rating agencies. There's Moody's now has the top three are S&P, Fitch, and Moody's. S&P and Fitch had already dropped the United States from their version of the AAA rating down to like AA1 or AA, depending on how they do it. Well, guess what? Thanks to Donald Trump's tariffs and the uncertainty in how we are spending, our credit rating is now dropped. We do not have a AAA credit rating anywhere among the top agencies. And you know what? Of course, what are they trying to do? They're trying to put lipstick on this Trump. I should say they're trying to put lipstick on this Donald Trump, because I don't want to say lipstick on this pig, because that pigs are cute and Donald Trump is not. They're trying to claim that this is exactly what he wanted, or that it's Joe Biden's fault, or that it's no big deal. But let's listen to Representative Johnson try to spin this.
I want to ask you about Moody's on Friday. For the first time in a century, they downgraded the U.S. government's AAA rating. They say an increase in government debt and interest payment ratios, quote, that are significantly higher than similarly rated sovereigns. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says it should be a wake-up call to your party. He says you're hell-bent on a multi-trillion-dollar tax cut for the ultra-wealthy. Your response?
It's just utter nonsense. It's just like Chuck Schumer to create a crisis and then point fingers of blame. This is the Biden spending spree that got us in this mess. Moody's is not incorrect, but that's why that emphasizes the very need for the legislation we're talking about, historic spending cuts.
It's not historic spending cuts, because they are going to also cut taxes. This is adding to the deficit. It is not going to help the credit rating. This is what they have anticipated. Moody's is not as stupid as you think we are, Speaker Mike Johnson. And speaking more on the money front, Scott Bessent, he is, of course, still loading on dung to the heap he has already created in front of himself and all over his reputation. This is the Treasury Secretary who, despite all of us knowing that a tariff is a tax on imports, despite the fact that even Rand Paul, going on the Sunday show, says that, and former Vice President Mike Pence, everybody knows this, but Donald Trump, who he bends the knee for, says it's not. So you know what happened over the weekend, on Friday. Walmart, as it will do at the end of each quarter, is having an earnings call. And in retail, the last quarter ends January 31st. Why? Because all of the spending for Christmas and so on gets done not just through December 31, but through January 31, because that's when people spend their gift cards or do returns and so on. So the next quarter ended at the end of April. So now it is the middle of May, and it's time to talk about the numbers from the last quarter and what they anticipate. That's what an earnings call is, where management invites in analysts to hear this, and you can listen in if you so choose as well. So on this earnings call on Friday, the CEO of Walmart said, look, we're going to have to raise prices on our customers because of these tariffs. And by the way, what I've read since this news hit was that one example of something that was going to go up hugely were car seats, infant car seats or toddler car seats. Those infant car seats, that are so important to have, those are going to go up about 30%, according to this reading that I have done. Well, what does Donald Trump do? He flips the F out. He puts out this rage post on social media saying, no, you can't do this. Walmart, you have to eat these costs. And complains that Walmart shareholders have made so much money, or Walmart's made a record billions of dollars, that they're a rich company and they should eat the cost of the tariff. Now, Donald Trump told us over and over again that China and the countries from which Walmart is importing pays the tariff. Literally, that is not true. The tariff is paid by the importer, Walmart, and Donald Trump is admitting that because he says Walmart should eat that tariff. Walmart does not appear to want to eat that tariff, but wants to pass those increased costs, or at least part of them, along to consumers. So he has been smoked out. And let us now listen. And Scott Bassett, when he was asked about that, he was like, oh no, I've spoken to the CEO now of Walmart and he's going to eat those costs. Okay, great. Can you imagine if Joe Biden or any Democrat was having his Treasury Secretary get on the phone and muscle a U.S. company? I'm still old enough to remember when everyone was flipping out because of the Biden administration being in conversation with social media organizations. Okay. Here they're pressuring them about how to spend shareholders' money. This sounds more like communism and socialism than I know what to say. I'm not saying that Walmart shareholders shouldn't. I mean, look, I think workers should be paid more than capital. That's true. That's not how the Walton family, which controls that company, looks at things. But I certainly don't think the president of the United States should be sending his henchmen in to threaten company executives. That's not how this thing is supposed to work. So I've got one more thing on Bassett before we get to the equivalent of the top of our hour. And this is it. Still on the money front. The big news, as you know, we've been talking about for days, is Donald Trump deciding that he is going to accept essentially this white elephant plane that they could not even sell. Qatar could not sell, but Donald Trump cannot wait to have this golden palace in the sky. And we all know that it's for Donald Trump. It is designed, it's going to be redesigned to his tastes, as if it wasn't tacky enough for us. And then after his administration, donated to his library. This is a gift to Donald Trump himself. And so what does Bassett try to do here? He tries to peddle us all manner of bullshit on this. So let's listen. I'm sure you've heard this before. Let's play it and discuss.
Says he's giving it to him as a nice gesture. You're a hard-nosed businessman. Even if Qatar isn't asking for anything in return now for the jet, I mean, that's a bill that could come due. Nobody in the Middle East gives things or anywhere in the world, just gives a $400 million jet just to be nice.
Well, I don't know, Jake. The French gave us the Statue of Liberty. The British gave us the Resolute.
Hold on one second. The French gave us the Statue of Liberty. Look at his little grin. He thinks he's so smart. I don't know, Jake. The French gave us the Statue of Liberty. The British gave us the Resolute desk. Let's just start with that desk. Where is that Resolute desk? Is the Resolute desk in the private collection of one of the descendants of the president? Is it in a private library, or is it sitting right smack dab in the Oval Office? I think it's in the Oval Office. I think that was actually a gift and not of huge value to the United States. Well, let's talk about that very more expensive Statue of Liberty. Did you know? I mean, I know Scott Bassett knows this, or he's more of a moron than I've given him credit for. But there was a joint resolution of Congress, my friends, in 1877. And under this joint resolution, Congress decided to accept the Statue of Liberty. So there's that. Yeah. And it was in 1877. And March 3rd, 1877, on his final full day in office, President Grant signed this joint resolution. And we know about this also, not just because he signed it, but later in a speech that was given by the President of the United States in 1886. The president, and this was Grover Cleveland, referenced the joint resolution of Congress. So even if that was considered a gift to a president, Congress approved it, as is supposed to be done with any foreign gifts under the Foreign Emoluments Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Moreover, it's my understanding that we actually had to pay for some major part of building the Statue of Liberty. But let's continue with Bissett.
I'm not sure they asked for anything in advance. And the more important airplane deal was there's $100 billion of orders from Qatari Airlines to Boeing. Kelly Ortberg, the
Okay, now he's trying to change the subject, saying, oh, that's not important. Look, Boeing, Boeing airline got all these orders from Qatar. So isn't that great? Don't try to change the subject. Don't lie to us and then distract us. Now, I got to do one more thing before we now get to back to the creepy guy, Edward Bartkus, and unpacking his twisted logic and understanding where this comes from, so that if you hear people using this kind of language or justifying his behavior, you know what to say. And also, let's just get a window in. Now, let's now go to Crazy Town, because yes, there is some fun Crazy Town. Okay, on the fun side of Crazy Town, sometimes when you have someone really incompetent and IQ challenged in an important role like James Comer has, he says not just offensive things, but offensive, in terms of our humanity, in terms of scapegoating immigrants, that kind of offensive thing, in terms of undermining the Constitution and democracy, right? But sometimes he just says things that that doesn't mean what you think it means. So here we have Comer, and I think this will.
If that was intentional.
Okay, and here he is. You may remember all of that Comey gate. Do you remember we talked about that? How James Comey was walking down the beach and saw a picture of shells in formation. Here we go. Let's look at that. That looked like this, 8647, and he shared it on his social media, and he thought it was funny. And now the Secret Service is investigating him, and we have Tulsi Gabbard saying he should be in prison, and yet Merriam-Webster says the word 86 doesn't mean kill, that it actually means kind of get rid of, or it comes from a menu when the item's no longer on the menu, and it's like take it off the menu. So essentially he's saying take Donald Trump off the menu, and this is the thing they think he should be investigated for, even though during the Biden administration, no one, or Biden administration, no one actually had the Secret Service investigate or lock up any of the people who created sort of violent pantomimes and photos and things like that about Democrats. But okay, you be you. Now, let's listen to what he had to say about James Comey.
Me at all if that was intentional and they were trying to jizz up some type of coup or some type of insurrection, as Jamie Raskin would say.
Excuse me, but jizz up some kind of coup is not a thing. And I am going to just leave it at that. Okay, friends. So now let's turn to the story of Guy Edward Bartkus. And what I want to do here, if I can, is I have this audio. Okay. I have the audio that I was able to get. It's very hard to get because anyone who posts the audio, it seems to be immediately taken off Twitter. But I did download it. And where I want to start with this, if you are still with me, where I want to start with this before you listen to this audio, I want to share with you a person named Gary Mosher, who is referenced in his audio. He talks about Gary's teachings. And so I want to share with you, and these are disturbing. I want to share with you Gary Mosher clip from 2 of his videos so you get what he is about. And I want you to understand and contrast how utterly deranged and psycho Gary Mosher comes across with how controlled and ultra the ultra rational affect, which is disjoined with what he is about to do, meaning Guy's plan to go out and bomb this clinic. I want you to notice the difference, which I think plays into how really angry this young man was. I don't think he was insane, and I don't think he had suicidal ideations. I think he is a very angry young man who saw nothing valuable in his life and decided that it was very important for him to be smarter than everyone else and to have unlocked the code to life, and decided that if he was miserable, everyone else must be miserable. And even if they weren't, their very existence was causing harm to some others, so that everyone on the planet essentially is brainwashed into believing they are happy or they're miserable, but everybody must think like him or they're lying. And so they all deserve to die because, and let me get this to you, the main thing is the heart of this ideology, this EFIL, EFIL, the opposite of life, is that because no one gave consent to you and to Guy before he was born, that no one gave him consent, that they had no right to bring him into this world. And so therefore, he has the right to die and should not have laws against suicide. Okay, that's one thing. The next tenet is the reason why young men do these mass shootings is because no one will let them just die, kill themselves. And yet he doesn't seem to answer the question of why, instead of taking a gun or a bomb or an explosive or what have you to other people, why not just blow yourself up in the middle of the desert in your car? He doesn't fully answer that, other than the argument that he's not trying to get attention, but attention to this very important cause, right? And the third tenet is, so the first is that no one had the right to bring you here, and so therefore you should be able to die. The second is you have to kill other people because everyone else must also be miserable. And the final third thing in all of this seems to be a very strange hatred of women. And you can see it in here. So let's listen to his guru, Gary Mosher, or at least the person he references, whose teaching he follows in this I don't want to call it anti-life, but because they call it EFIL, like that, EFIL, but they call it, I guess, anti-natalist or sort of a nihilistic philosophy. Okay, so again, if you don't want to watch this would be your time to go, because this is going to get very weird. And yes, Donnie, he did put up a camera. This is Guy Edward Bartkus. He did put up a camera on a tripod, apparently, to film it. I don't know if the film was completed. It sounds like it was, but that it didn't actually upload to the internet. So probably the filming of this is in FBI hands. But the audio he recorded before he went over sometime before, I don't know if it was the same day or days before, he recorded and put up on his website, is available. And we'll be playing that. So again, this is your time to go if you don't want to see something super creepy. This again is Guy Mosher, one of the gurus in the EFIL, opposite of life movement. Again, this would be time to go, especially if you have children or you can't stomach this kind of thing.
Cruel, awful human beings. Pregnant women are a blight. They're a disgusting, awful thing. They shouldn't be cherished. They shouldn't be any of this stuff. What they're doing is incredibly irresponsible. They have no right to think they can control this experiment and everything is going to be just fine.
All right. I mean, it really should. It's something that you should only do if you're a really qualified professional. You know, this isn't something crack horse. You know, no. And obviously nature doesn't see it that way. Okay, that nature makes it possible for anybody to be this kind of criminal, you know, to pretend to be a pilot when you're not, you know, pretend you took your driver's.
Okay. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to share with you what more was there. on that. It gets pretty weird. Now I'm going to give you that context and share another disturbing video of this guru before we listen to Guy.
And why does she want to be playing Dr. Frankenstein like that? Why does she want to take the brain off a shelf, you know, and shove it into the monster? And then what if the monster's body is broken? Or
okay, so who is Dr. Frankenstein? He's referring to pregnant women, I think. Right, women who get pregnant.
what if the brain you put in it is shit? You want to take care of that thing? How are you going to fix it if it goes wacky and does horrible things? How are you going to undo it? There's no undo button. There's no fix it button. There's no repair button. There's no anything button. So I could just explain it to her. Why do I have to rape and brutalize her? So it's a silly example. But yes, of course, if persuading doesn't work, I would argue that sure, go ahead, push her downstairs, beat the shit out of her, do whatever you have to do. But understand that we still live in a society, a civilization, and you're going to go to jail. All right? So, yeah, you did the right thing, but you're going to go to jail, asshole.
Okay. Do you get the idea of this one person in this EFL movement? And apparently there's this whole fight within this movement. I don't know. Are there 10 people, 20, 30, 100? I don't know. But this guy, this is who he is modeling himself after. So when you listen to this young man try to act like he is super rational and use this very radio DJ voice, remember the face behind his ideology. So I'm going to be playing you now the full 30-minute because it's kind of gets boring and I want you to see how circular he gets. I don't want to say fully boring. It's just circular. And when he gets to a point where his logic could easily have been undone or explained away, we'll pause there and talk about it. And then I'll keep going. Okay, here we go.
Our clinic.
Sorry, it begins. Hold on, let me just pull this up. Here we go.
Okay, so I figured I would just make a recording explaining why I've decided to bomb an IVF building or clinic. Basically, it just comes down to I'm angry that I exist, and that nobody got my consent to bring me here. And I know what you're going to say. How could we have got your consent because you didn't exist? Blah blah blah. Exactly the point. There's no way you can get consent to bring someone here, so don't fucking do it, right? And if you're going to try to say something really fucking retarded like, well, since you don't exist, you don't have a consent status, and therefore we don't have to get consent. This really isn't any different from saying, oh, well, the girl's unconscious, so I can't get I can't get her consent to have sex with her, so therefore it's okay because I can't.
Hold on 1 second. So let's stop there. He comes back to this metaphor a lot. If someone is unconscious, then he's likening bringing a child into the world who didn't get to consent in advance when they didn't exist to a woman who's unconscious, suggesting that an unconscious woman or girl is doesn't exist as a soul. That's quite a stretch. But moreover, he's also assuming that the vast majority of people, everyone who's brought here obviously didn't consent when they didn't exist, but once they are able to know what's going on, that most of them decide they don't want to be here. Because I can tell you, if a woman who was unconscious was raped, and when she was awake, realized it happened and was like, well, okay, it was my boyfriend. And even though I didn't consent to it, I'm fine. He didn't know I was knocked out. That would be something very different from having no idea and having been, I'm just trying to break this down, but he conflates it all. Okay, this is his metaphor. I didn't, it's equivalent of rape to bring a child into the world. Okay, this is nuts. Let's continue.
Yeah, there's no way to even ask for the consent, right? So, if you actually think that's a good argument against what I've said, right, you're absolutely retarded. Your brain, it's very childish and retarded, right?
So the way that he responds, he cannot see anyone else's argument, and he thinks he has got it locked tight.
And before you say, ooh, that's ad hominem, I said the word retard. No, I made an argument, and then I called you a retard, fucker. So it's not ad hominem. Ad hominem is when someone just name calls, and that's it. That's what ad hominem is, fuckhead. You people, some of you motherfuckers are just too fucking stupid. Okay.
So he's also arguing with people who don't exist, who are, I guess he's arguing with people who are going to listen to this after he's dead.
Anyways, so yes, the point is obviously you get people's consent to bring them here, so don't do it. It's that fucking simple, right? This is not complicated logic. This is not complicated ethics, okay? So anyway.
I love how he says, it's not complicated logic and it's not complicated ethics. What an ego. Has he mentioned once any reading he has done by any philosopher throughout history other than listen to this guy, Gary Mosher? If he really was wrestling with these ideas about existence and the meaning of existence, why would he think that at age 25, he was the first person it ever dawned on to consider this, as well as the meaning of consent, which is a very complex concept in philosophy, law, religion, community, and so on. But let's continue because he knows everything.
Anyways, all right. So I have written some things down here. Tried to kind of order them in a way that makes sense, just because I have a lot of things to say, and yeah. So hopefully there's some order to my little recording here. But anyways, so yeah. So the reason I'm wanting to get the fuck out of this whole life game is basically, I guess it comes down to I'm not interested in being a life addict, right? So I really.
Okay, this is his next metaphor. First, he starts with what he considers is seal-tight argument for being brought into the world as the equivalent of being an unconscious woman being raped. When we talked about why that seems rather imperfect, and for a number of reasons, and even if you think it's true, doesn't allow you to come to the conclusion that therefore every single person who was brought into the world unwillingly should therefore die, because even if they're happy to be here and don't want to. Okay, so that breaks down. Now he is in his next concept. So let's listen.
Never wanted to do this life drug.
The life drug. He has decided that he's going to use a metaphor that living is a drug because it keeps you wanting more things and craving more experiences. I don't fully see that, other than, water and food. We pretty much kind of, and sleep, we pretty much kind of stay alive, kind of keep ticking. Heart keeps going, brain keeps going. But he's smug and self-centered. And as someone pointed out, all this just seems to be a justification for him wanting to blow something up, just like he blew up his family home. Okay, let's go.
And I remember, like, when I was a kid, people just trying to, my whole life, really, people have always been trying to push this life drug onto me. People try to push experiences onto me, like, hey, let's, go to a concert or some bullshit. It's always something,
Okay. Inviting you to join them for a concert isn't pushing something on you, right? It's saying, well, you want to join. It's an invitation. Pushing something on you is where you're literally pushed or threatened or thrown into the car. Okay?
I'm always saying, no, not interested. And, people are, for some reason, like, people just can't fucking take no for an answer, when it comes to this shit. It really isn't any different from, like, kids pushing drugs or smoking on some other kid or whatever. It's not really any different from this.
Oh, yeah, it is. So he just makes these analogies and says something isn't different. What would be really analytical is to say what is similar. What similar is both asking someone or cajoling someone or kind of nudging someone to go to a concert, and pushing someone to take drugs. Both of those things do rely on peer pressure. That's what they have in common. What they don't have in common, obviously, is that after you've gone to a concert, you don't become emotionally and physically dependent on rock concerts, as you have proven, because you don't like to go to things like that, guy. I mean, you could make a list of the similarities and distinctions between drug use and going to rock concerts. I know they sometimes overlap there, but that's not the point. You can make these distinctions, and maybe he would refer to, instead of being so smug and such a fucking know-it-all, maybe ask experts. These are, could be interesting philosophical questions and analogies. And, maybe, I don't know if he went to college, the kind of thing maybe you would talk about as a teenager in college, but he has some serious, smug, egotistical, arrested development shit going on. Well, let's continue. I'm going to play it for a while.
Except in this case, it's more like fucking heroin. It's a much worse drug. And also, yes, life is a drug. It really is very analogous to a drug. I know some of you assholes are going to get all triggered.
Analogous is how you pronounce it.
About life. But I mean, think about this. If you sit around and do absolutely nothing, like literally nothing, right, you're going to become very miserable pretty quickly, right? And the reason for this is that the default state for you is deprivation, right? And this is how life gets you to chase things, right?
Actually, if I sit around and do nothing, like read a book, or chill out, I'm pretty happy. He's speaking about himself, like gets you to chase things. I'm also happy when I'm ambitious. And, I think there are ranges of emotions. So anyway, I better shut up and let you listen.
And yeah, that includes literally even drinking water, what we would call basic needs, right? Your brain gets you to chase things. That's really what's going on, right? And the shit that, we're chasing really is stupid, right? This whole evolution thing, life thing, is not an intelligent design, when you see innocent creatures getting completely fucked by life, I'm not just talking humans, but even animals, right? How the hell can you sit there and call that an intelligent design? It clearly isn't. It's a completely absurd thing to call life an intelligent design. It's clearly not, right? It clearly is just something that happened because it could, right? The circumstances.
I'm pausing for a second to show you.
Here has been found.
I want to show you. This is the damage that this guy did. It's very creepy how he is talking. Let's go back on.
Just right to where it could happen, and it did happen. It's not, evolution isn't really doing anything on purpose, right? It's just evolving. It's just happening. That's it, right? So it's not intelligent, and that's why I use the word stupid a lot in reference to the shit people are chasing, the shit people are doing, and
again, remember how important it is for him to feel intelligent.
what life is doing, it's stupid. I'm not saying that just because I'm upset about it. I'm saying that because I've thought about it, and I think the word stupid really does apply, okay? I tend not to use language too loosely, so... Okay, so, all this just to say, life itself really is just, it's a big drug addiction, right? It's just chasing absolute nonsense, and I've pretty much seen this since I was a kid. I've pretty much known it since I was a kid. As a kid, I wasn't able to put words to it, but some part of my brain kind of understood it, right? Because I really wasn't very interested in anything. I really didn't want much, and as I've gotten older and older, more aware, I started to realize, like, oh, this is a really nasty game. This life on Earth game is really nasty. It's causing tons and tons of harm. It is a zero-sum game. Is that what it's called? Zero-sum game? Did I say that right? Hopefully I said that right. Basically what I'm trying to say is, since the default state is deprivation, basically you're being whipped constantly, okay? And the best you can achieve is not being whipped, right? Satisfying your needs and your desires.
Once again, he acts as if one of his premises is absolute and builds from it. I don't think the basic state is deprivation, but okay. Because think about it. He's ignoring the role of the mother. The basic state when you're born, in theory, is to be nursed, to be held, to be cared for. He's erasing all femininity in all life force. It's really fucked up.
Right. And which, again, really is just the whip being taken away. Right. So, as in Mendham, Gary would say, there is no carrot.
As Amendum Gary would say, okay, Gary Mosier goes by the name Amendum. So listen to this, as Gary would say. This is who he follows. Let's go.
Causing tons and tons of harm. It is a zero-sum game. Is that what it's called? Zero-sum game? Did I say that right? Hopefully I said that right. Basically what I'm trying to say is, since the default state is deprivation, basically you're being whipped constantly, okay? And the best you can achieve is not being whipped, right? Satisfying your needs and your desires, right? And which, again, really is just the whip being taken away, right? So, as in Mendham, Gary would say, there is no carrot, there's only the whip, okay? It doesn't intuitively make sense when you think about it. Like, when I first heard him say shit like that, I totally didn't believe it. I was like, no. Like, there's certain things that are just, like, pleasurable on their own. And, but as I thought about, over the week after, the week after I heard him say that, I just started thinking about things, and I started to realize, like, no, it's, there really is no, like, fundamental, like, good, it really is all made of fixing bad things, fixing deprived states and whatnot, It's really interesting, and it's really, unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. So anyway, so yeah, zero-sum game, because like I said, the best you can do is clean up messes, and we can't even really do that well. I mean, you look around, we're not doing that, So, we, again, another thing Gary would say is, like, you spill the milk and then you clean up a small portion of it, and then you pat yourself on the back. It's really, I mean, life really truly is completely fucked.
So guys, I can understand if you want to go now. I'm going to hang out with everyone who wants to continue to listen to this. Otherwise, have a beautiful day.
And absurd, right? And to anyone who's, like, aware of these facts, intelligent, whatever, it's the more and more you become aware of this shit, the more miserable life becomes. It's just like, oh fuck, this is really bad, You start to see all the harm, and it's so nasty. Anyways, so and then, I basically, most people just really aren't in any position in life to do much about it, and so basically you're just going to live life as a slave, really. I mean, people don't like it when I use this word, but that's just the way I see it. I don't know what to say. Like, I really do just see existence as a kind of slavery to a DNA molecule, basically. That's really all it is.
Gosh.
And so I'm just saying maybe you're not miserable. Okay.
So he has these ideas, that this idea of a DNA molecule to kind of reproduce. Okay, fine. So I don't understand why unless he's just deeply depressed and arrogant, why he sees it as slavery. When we have so much choice and so much freedom, and life can be a banquet. He has opportunity. It sounds like he really needed, speaking of mental health, real medication, real psychotherapy to deal with his childhood. What makes him a fire starter? I don't know that, but there's a real issue here, and he is projecting onto all of us that just because he's come to this knowledge that, yes, life ends in death and there is suffering. You think you were the first person to grapple with this? He's dealing with this psycho guy and other people around him, adults who don't say, those are really instead of people saying, well, you're crazy, that idea is stupid. Why isn't anyone around him saying, there are other people who grapple with that? That's because he's not receptive. It's so important for him to be smart and to not receive. Anyhow, let's continue. And I'm trying to shut up, but I'm afraid of letting him have the final say in case people are listening to this nonsense. But I'll just shut up and let him talk from now on.
Okay, fine, whatever. But a lot of people are, okay? And, it's wasted suffering. There's so many people, there's so many creatures, really, I should say, because it's not just humans that are important. It's, you know, all the other sentient beings on this planet are also just as important. Okay, so much wasted suffering, right? So much suffering that occurs, and for no, you know, benefit. You know, it's just a complete waste, and it's sickening. It really is sickening. You know, so yeah, okay, so just I'm doing all this explaining just, you know, for the people who don't get this shit. Like, this is all really.
Hey, let me ask people in the live chat. I'm hearing folks say that you like when I inject my thoughts. So that's what Nick Rich says. I will continue to do that unless you folks say not to.
Really important shit. Okay, what else did I have written down here? I wrote down suicide prevention is people trying to push life on you, and is analogous to peers pressuring you to try drugs. Okay.
Okay. No, suicide prevention isn't people trying to push life on you. It's something my father, who is a doctor, said, that suicide is a temporary solution to a long time problem. Many people people who get help and don't commit suicide and have therapy and have their mental health improve get an opportunity to live and have joy and not cause harm to all the people around them. So, you know, again, he is reversing, he's making himself, making everyone else into bad aggressors, that somehow that telling someone it's good to live is telling them it's good to die. And of course, I understand the intricacies and interconnectedness of life and death, because these are things that most of us think about when we're children, like he said he did. But instead of indulging in some of the greatest literature, like what if he had read Tolstoy? I mean, reading Anna Karenina could have unpacked some of his thoughts and made him felt at home in the world if anyone introduced him to that, but I doubt it. This guy has all the answers. He's not interested.
I kind of already said this, but I didn't say the suicide prevention part. But yeah, suicide prevention really is just that. So people trying to prevent others from killing themselves, especially if the person has like a peaceful way of doing it, right? And you try to prevent them from doing it. You're just pushing life on them, which again is a drug. So you're just pushing drugs on people. So fuck that. Absolute nonsense. Another little thing I wrote down, really interesting point that I've not heard anyone else make. It's in regards to mass shooters and, you know, mass killings and whatnot. And I was thinking to myself, you know, there's an organization called the Violence Project. I believe that's what they're called. They have a lot of interesting data on mass shooters. And something interesting they found, really common in mass shooters, is that they have a suicidal crisis before they become before they start thinking about killing people, right? They have some kind of suicidal crisis. This is fairly common, right? Not all of them, but pretty common. And I was thinking to myself, you know...
I'm so sorry, Sue. I want to make a note of this. Yes. A family member's suicide devastates the whole family, as does a friend's. Okay, let's continue here.
You really probably would solve... You really would prevent a lot of mass shootings if you gave them the right to a graceful exit, the right to die, right? And I'm not talking about the fake right to...
Okay. Guys, this gets into the really crazy stuff. This is anger and utter gaslighting. How in the world does he expect us to believe that it is easier for a mass shooter to come up with a whole plan to collect guns or other weapons and plan out a way to harm other people, and that they're only doing that because they just want to die? Bullshit. Bullshit. There is an aggression there toward others and anger wanting to destroy. I do not believe that Adam Lanza, when he went in and killed all the children at Sandy Hook, I think that was his name from there, that if only he had been given the right to kill himself, that he wouldn't have done it, right? You could have easily, I got news for you. You could, I feel like he was, I feel like I'm getting the wrong, someone can correct me. I'm getting the wrong shooter. There's so many. It's a lot easier to get one gun and shoot yourself, which is what they often do at the end of these shootings, or do suicide by cop, or as it's sad that this young girl had her friend do this for her. And now he's going to prison. Yes. So it's a lot easier to kill yourself, which I don't want people to do, than to go shoot up a whole school. So just, his idea, his logic that, well, that people who end up doing school shootings also had suicidal ideation. Well, guess what? People who do school shootings also have coffee for breakfast, or ate or said hello to somebody or spoke English. These correlation is not causation. So he has that logic flaw. But secondly, I'm calling bullshit on it's easier to kill 10 people or more than it is to commit suicide.
The die that we have now, okay, which isn't even really a right, because other people have to decide for you, so it's not even really a right. And the people that do get it, obviously they have to be like very terminally ill and all this bullshit. It's not a right. It's nonsense, right? They've passed it in a very, very, very restricted and minimal way so that they can bullshit people and say, oh, look, we have the right to die, when no, we absolutely fucking don't, okay? And I could get into this whole topic, but I will in a minute. But the main point, back to the mass shooter thing, right?
His big size, are they sort of arrogant and like, oh, I've explained this to everybody and they just don't understand. No, it's that your logic is flawed. Period. Okay, let's go. Sorry.
So I really never wanted to do this life drug. And I remember like when I was
Oh, let me just tell you, sorry, one more thing. Speaking of Adam Lanza, yes, the Sandy Hook shooter, according to what I've read online, he also mentioned Gary Mosher, that weird death cult leader.
People just trying to, I mean, my whole life, really, people have always been trying to push this life drug onto me. People try to push experiences onto me like, hey, let's, go to a concert or some bullshit. It's always something, And I'm always saying, no, not interested. And
oh, shoot.
It's nonsense, right? They've passed it in a very, very, very restricted and minimal way so that they can bullshit people and say, oh, look, we have the right to die, when no, we absolutely fucking don't, okay? And I could get into this whole topic, but I will in a minute. But the main point, back to the mass shooter thing, right? I really do think if we had an actual right to die in the U.S., right? Right to a graceful exit, whatever the fuck you want to call it, you probably would prevent a good chunk of mass shooters. So yeah, interesting little fact, or theory, I should say, whatever. Very likely true though. Okay, yeah, back to the right to die thing. That's
also, he acknowledges the theory. It goes very likely true. First of all, on its face, again, I don't believe that giving someone the right to, I think that people, sadly, I lost a friend to suicide, and all this stuff can be very triggering. And I can tell you, not one day of her life would she have been the kind of person who would go out and shoot people. She was covering up her depression, and she absolutely needed help, and the medical system absolutely failed her. As did the state in which she lived that allowed her to buy a gun within a couple days of getting out of a facility at a hospital, mental health inpatient. She couldn't get inpatient facilities, so she was stuck in the hallway at this hospital, and within a day of getting out was able to buy a gun that she used to kill herself. And this is very depressing and hard for me. Never would she have gone out and shot other people. So what he's doing here is blaming everyone else for his desire to blow something up. This is the same guy again who blew up his home as a child. Does he mention that? Doesn't mention that.
Really important topic. Yeah, so what we have now is a fake right to die. It's not at all some kind of human right to die. Absolute nonsense. There's the slippery slope argument where people say like, oh, if we gave everyone the right to a graceful exit, what about like people getting coerced into it or whatever? And it's like, look, I could apply this shit to like free speech too. I could say like, what if people say things that hurt my feelings or say bad things or whatever the fuck, right? I'm just saying you could apply the slippery slope argument to other types of human rights, and you can kind of quickly understand that, yeah, the price is kind of worth it, right? And then you think about, well, what is the price, right? In the case of right to die, what is the price being paid in these instances where it's abused and misused, right? The price, think about it, is somebody who maybe didn't want to die falls asleep and doesn't wake up, right? That's the big price, quote unquote, price being paid, right? Bullshit. I mean,
Okay. He exists in a world of one person, doesn't think about the impact of others. Someone who is, what he's talking about is assisted suicide for people who aren't terminally ill, for example. And I think, and he said, oh, there could be coercion, but what if there isn't? What if it's just someone who, didn't really want to, but kind of at the in a moment of being upset or depressed, made this decision to do this. And he said the only downside is that, so what? They don't wake up. He's not thinking about anyone in their family or their community, in the cascading impacts on them. In the chat here, we've seen people talk about that. The people who are victims who end up deeply depressed and themselves sometimes succumbing. So yeah, no.
Such nonsense, right? So we're not, it's not even really a harm, right? I mean, even if you think it's a harm, fine, okay. But at least understand, you're being way too perfectionistic, right? You're being absurdly perfectionistic. Nothing in this world is perfect, right? So you're basically saying we can't have the right to die until it's literally perfect, which is not pragmatic at all, right? You're not being pragmatic at all.
Yeah, this is his favorite thing, to say everyone's not pragmatic, and he is that he doesn't have emotions. Emotions are bad. You see the thread here?
It's a non-argument. It's an absolute fucking non-argument. So complete bullshit that we don't have a right to die, especially considering the fact that you're brought here without your consent in the first fucking place. The least this fucking goddamn society could do is give people a right to a graceful way out, not force them to jump off a goddamn building or shoot themselves in the fucking head or strangle themselves, pretty common method, whatever the fuck, drink sodium nitrite, I know people think getting shot in the head and drinking sodium nitrite, these methods are considered like nice or better methods or whatever, but yeah, they're really not. I mean, getting shot in the head, pretty messy. Also, like, yes, it's easy to put the gun to your head, but like actually pulling the trigger, a little scary, I must say. And the sodium nitrite.
And let me pause here, please. Deb has posted this. There is a hotline, 998lifeline.org. Please get help if any of this sounds like it makes sense to you. It just doesn't. And trust me, so many of us have been depressed in our life and felt things were hopeless. And a lot of that can be our own internal chemistry in a combination with the situation. We might be locked in. There is a way out. This guy is wrong. And note that he didn't just exit. He went and blew up a clinic. Fortunately, no one died, but his goal in choosing an IVF clinic was because this is a place where people would choose who could not get pregnant without assistance to bring children into the world, and he thinks that's evil. Let's continue.
Nitrite thing, that's become a popular method, obviously. It's not like it's not completely peaceful. It does make your stomach feel pretty shitty, and I'm just saying it causes some pretty, kind of gross symptoms. So, yeah, fuck these assholes that would say, like, oh, you can just shoot yourself. You do have a right to die. I've heard people say shit like this. It's such a myopic fucking view. It's so shitty. So insensitive. Fuck you. Fuck you. Oh, God. Okay. What else?
What arrogance. He thinks people saying to him or suggesting that killing people who want to be in this world and killing children like Adam Lanza did, and all of this, that's saying that maybe that person should have just killed themselves and not everyone else. He's saying that that's rude and insensitive. Oh boy. This guy only sees the world through the eyes of someone just like him. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I should talk a bit about IVF. I mean, obviously, I'm very against it. It's extremely wrong. I mean, these are people who are having kids after they've sat there and thought about it. How much more stupid can it get? I don't know.
Okay, that's his big complaint. Why an IVF clinic? Because this is the place where people who are having children, bringing babies into the world, are doing so having thought about it. So here we get the distinction. In his view, most birth might be accidental, that people get pregnant as a result of sexual intercourse, and then they have these children, and how dare they bring us into the world, is his view. He thinks it's even worse. Like, pregnant women are terrible and evil, and as we heard from his leader, Gary Mosier. But in instance, he thinks it's even worse when people make a deliberate choice to bring people into the world, because he thinks people being brought into the world without their consent is the source of all evil, right? This is his twisted logic. And there he is. He's bought into all these steps without considering that maybe people want to be here.
I guess you can make the argument like, well, at least they're thinking about it and at least they're planning it and all that. It's like, yeah, that is something, I guess. But at the same time, again, you still can't get their goddamn consent. So it's you're not getting around that argument, not rationally. So basically, I'm anti-life, right? And IVF is like kind of the epitome of pro-life ideology, right? So yeah, fuck IVF clinics, and fuck the people that work for them, quite frankly. Ignorance is not really an excuse. I know, because I know people are gonna say like, oh, they haven't even thought about what they're doing or whatever, and it's like, yes, that's sad and all, but like, again, if a guy is going around raping people and is like actually retarded and doesn't understand what he's doing.
Again, we get back to the rape. He seems very obsessed.
Right? Does that mean you don't punish him still? You don't like lock him up still or something? No, it doesn't mean that. You still have to take action, right? You still have to do something about it. So it's just, unfortunately, intent. Like, I do care about intent, but unfortunately, in reality, it doesn't mean a whole lot,
Okay, now he gets into the concept of intent. Again, one of these concepts at the bedrock of legal culpability, being able to hold someone legally responsible, either for money damages or in a criminal court. Intent, this complexity, it's a complex question in law. It's a complex philosophical question. People wrestled with it. I'm shocked that, given that he has the access to the internet and the capacity to engage and think about it, it's not like he's totally isolated. There are philosophers, there are religious traditions, there is law where we grapple with what level of intent is required. And he just is such a black and white thinker that he thinks, oh, it's too complicated. So whether you had the intent, his view is that you're responsible if something you did caused harm, and that you should be, not just, in his view, he's the jury, judge, and executioner, that if something causes harm, even if you didn't intend to do it, you are as culpable, in his view, as if you had the intent. Well, my friend, that is not how law works. And you are not the judge, the jury, judge, and executioner. That's who he thinks he should be. Let's go.
I want it to mean a lot. I used to believe it was everything, but in the last few years, I kind of started to realize, like, no, unfortunately, intent it means so little. And so even if you're causing harm and you don't get that you don't know that you're causing harm, you still have to be dealt with. You know what I mean? So just an unfortunate, reality. Anyways, let's see. What the hell else did I write down? Yeah, I wrote down, like, these people.
Also, it's just an unfortunate reality that, quote, you, end quote, have to be held responsible for things that where you cause harm. So he's anticipating that when he blows up his car in front of this clinic, that workers there are going to die. And he's like, well, they may not have intended to do evil in the world in his view, but it doesn't matter. Well, first of all, as I said, intent really matters. Secondly, they're not doing anything evil. They're helping families, adults who want to have children with reproductive assistance technology. So, okay, let's start. But even if he believed that the end that was being caused was harmful, again, even if he believed that, and even if it doesn't matter to him what the law says or doesn't say, this idea that he's saying all harm causing should be treated equally and any harm results in death is a pretty flippant giant leap. And he's so dismissive and he's so arrogant. Like, well, my logic is, flawless is his view. And so flawless logic leads to murder. That's it. That's where this is going, my friends.
Well, like when they push life on you, like when you're especially when you're like a suicidal person, and they start pushing life on you, it's like the games these fucking people are trying to push on you, these life games you're trying to push aren't even good games, right? It's just like, oh, be a fucking consumer, right? Pay for the factory farms to rape the fucking animals. These are the fucking games we're playing as humans. It's sickening. Fuck these games. Why the fuck would I want to play these fucking games? It's absolutely.
Okay. Now we hear the anger in his voice. Right now we are hearing it. It's right clear there. Okay, let's continue.
Absurd. Nobody intelligent would want to play these stupid fucking games. I feel like I'm surrounded by fucking ghouls. Okay, what else?
He's surrounded by ghouls, people who are trying to encourage him to stay here on this planet and give it a chance, some joy. Someone who has decided that he is the judge, jury, and executioner, and if someone's at all involved in something he personally believes causes harm, they should die. He also believes that he alone gets to decide what is harmful and worthy of a death sentence. And he doesn't see any problem with that. Let's continue.
I wrote down, I already said this, but I kind of
you already
wrote it
said
in kind
everything,
of
dude.
a nice way, so I'm gonna read it even though I've already said this. I said, children cannot consent to being born, therefore you do not have consent. The act of bringing someone into this world is a non-consensual act and is reminiscent of rape.
Okay, there we go. There he is with that. And the way he says rape with a popping P is so annoying. And he says reminiscent of rape. And now he is going to get angry at you, even though you haven't even argued with him about his analogy. Here we go.
Now, in my mind, I really strongly consider it rape. I know some people are going to have an issue with me calling it that. So the way I worded it is very precise. I said it's reminiscent of rape, meaning I see a similar mindset, okay, in the people that are doing it, okay? That's what I'm saying, to be very specific. So, let's see. I wrote down, these topics are too important for me to accept people ignoring them. And I said, I don't actually believe people are ignoring them. I think people who have control over the internet are censoring these topics by shadow banning people who talk about them. And then, of course, also, all the algorithms that are in control now that are used to kind of manipulate what people see, what, kind of what they think. I think it's pretty effective. I won't say it's like crazy effective. I don't think people are like completely retarded and like incapable of knowing when they're being kind of manipulated and fucked with. People kind of have an idea of when they're being fucked with, and they kind of resist it. And so, but I'm just saying clearly it does work to some extent,
Whenever he says the word people think this and people think that, substitute the word I. Me. That's what this is about.
Life drug onto me. People try to push experiences onto me like, hey, let's, go to a concert or some bullshit. It's always something,
Oh shit. Here we go. I'm sorry.
So I'm gonna read it even though I've already said this. I said okay. That's about all I wrote down. So fuck pro-lifers. Fuck pro-life ideology. There's absolutely no rational reason to be pro-life. It's a zero-sum game. It only causes harm. It's all it's capable of producing is harm. It can't produce anything objectively good. It's never going to do that. Fuck transhumanism. Crazy shit. Absolute nonsense. Yeah, so I guess I would be considered a pro-mortalist. I don't like that
Yeah, I guess he does say he is a pro-mortalist. He says he doesn't like the expression. Here we go.
word, that name, I guess, pro-mortalist, because for people that don't think too deeply about it, they're going to get the impression that, like, that means I'm pro-dying, and that's not exactly the case. Like, I understand, obviously, there's many ways to die that are very bad and painful, so that's pretty negative and shitty, obviously. I'm pro-non-existence is what I am, right? So that is what pro-mortalism is.
So he's pro everyone's non-existence. Okay.
But obviously, I'm just saying pro-mortalism can make people think that, like, you're, like, some kind of sadist or something who wants to, like, cause death and destruction and whatnot. And it's like, no, that's not the case.
Yeah, he is. This is his... Yeah, I didn't accuse him of being a sadist wanting to cause death and destruction. That's literally fucking what he did. He wanted to cause death and destruction, but he didn't. No one in the clinic and no embryos were harmed. So I'm glad to hear that.
I know you're going to think, how ironic, because I'm causing destruction and possibly death. And it's like, I'm only doing this because I feel like it's what I have to do to get people's fucking attention and to let the world know, like, yes, I'm fucking serious about this shit. You have to take this seriously. Fuck you, you know, because I can't go on the internet and talk about this shit anymore. I can't find people anymore on the fucking internet because they've completely goddamn censored it. So I really feel like I'm being severely fucked with personally, you know, in so many fucking ways, by, you know, not having the right to a graceful exit. And then
So he's extremely angry that no one will let him kill himself. And by the way, if you have suicide ideation, don't do this. Don't listen to this guy. He's not a role model. He needed help. He is a fire starter, blew up his own house. His father hasn't seen him in 10 years. I don't know why. Thank God he didn't hurt anyone.
Again, by being completely censored and manipulated by the internet. I mean, the manipulation doesn't really work on me, but the censoring obviously does. It's actually pretty hard to get around, especially with all the fucking AI shit now being used to censor people, right? So like now you can't even like sneakily make comments anymore because AI understands context, you know? So like it's really fucking bad now. The censorship is really bad in the last few years. So it's very, very upsetting to me. It really fucks with me. I hate it. So, you know, I think Elon Musk banned the words like
We're getting close to the end, guys. Thank God.
Antinatalism on Twitter, and what else? Well, that's the main one, I guess, right? Antinatalism. So yeah, fuck Twitter. It's a shithole now, I guess, but I never really used it in the first place, but anyways, yeah, so that's basically it. I genuinely feel like it takes like, basically these topics they're way too fucking important, for it to be censored and ignored, and like they need to be put on blast. Like people need to be thinking and talking about these issues because they really are big issues. And before you say, oh, it's just your life that's shitty, you know, that's why you care so much. No, I've just spent this entire recording.
Brandon, you are right. He is a ticking time bomb. And in fact, after this recording, he did set fire to that clinic. You can see that, you know, we're almost toward the end, you guys.
Explaining to you like objectively why life is bad, and it's causing harm, and so it's not just about me. It's pretty clear that I care about all sentient life, right? All the feelings going on Earth. So yeah, just complete.
No, Brandon, this is the bomber. This is not the podcast he was listening to. This is absolutely Guy Edward Bartkus. This is the 30-minute recording talking about why he blew up the clinic.
Bullshit. I mean, that's like the main reason why I feel like shit all the time is because I'm aware of all the harm occurring to other fucking sentient beings, you know, all the animals being raped in farms and even, you know, by nature itself, obviously. Nature.
Again, the rape. Animals being raped at farms. He could choose other words, but nope.
Isn't nice. What it's doing isn't nice, obviously. And obviously, and also I'll make this clear, like, yes, I'm a vegan, but I understand that the harm being caused by nature is way, way larger than anything humans are doing, right? I'm upset about the factory farm shit just because.
So you guys, toward the end, he gets totally spun out. Let's keep listening.
I feel like we should really know better. You know, like we have the ability to recognize harm and we're just completely squandering it, you know, and then we consume it in such disgusting quantities and in such disgusting ways. I mean, it's just so, you know, it's just so sickening in every way. Everything about meat eating and you know, not just meat, but really, you know, all the animal products too, you know. Anyways, what was I saying? Okay, so, okay, I think this explains it pretty well. I think anyone who listens to this has a pretty good idea now.
Okay, it's going to get to the end. And I'm really glad Brandon said this. He is not alone. And this is true, you guys. I think there are reasons why that people get caught up into this. In his case, you know, he seems to be impermeable to any information or logic, but being depressed, being confused about the meaning of life, all these things, feeling like there is no value, all this alienation. In his instance, I'm not justifying his behavior. I'm just saying, understanding it, so you can work if you encounter a young person around you to make them feel smart as you are helping them unpack this. Because part of the problem is this older guy, Gary Mosier, he listens to him, people around him. This is someone, you know, this character now, the one who is now dead after he used, you know, in the suicide bombing, car bombing of this IVF clinic, this guy, Edward Bartkus, wanted to feel smart, wanted to feel like he'd figured something out. That could have been directed elsewhere. I don't know how he got locked in this mindset. And I think his arrogance might have been a mask for something. Anyway, let's continue.
Why I've done this and why I do believe it's justified, and I'm not getting off on it. I won't even be alive to witness it. So this isn't like me getting off on anything. You can't sit there and be like, oh, he's getting off on this. He wants attention or whatever. I mean, yes, I want attention, but it's not for me personally. Okay. It's for objectively important fucking causes. Okay. So
objectively important causes. Do you see? He wants to seem rational. These are important causes. He's not getting off on setting a fire and blowing something up, even though that's what he did when he was 9 years old, and people don't usually change unless there's some kind of intervention. Okay, sure, Jan.
I think it'll be pretty clear to anyone listening that, like, I'm doing this because I care and because I can see how important these issues are. And
you're doing this because you care? Okay, guy, let's unpack this. You fucking said earlier that intent doesn't matter, harm does. Okay, just trying to follow your own flippant logic. Let's go.
And the fact that they're being censored by this ghoulish society that we live in, you know, that just wants to keep this system running. And so obviously people can't be operating in some kind of honest mode. Their brain can't be operating in truth or honest mode because
okay, your brain, he's talking about, isn't being truthful or honest, because if you saw the suffering and misery and the fact that our lives end in death, then you would understand that we should hasten that. Is that logical? I don't think so. Use some flippant logic.
If it were, they would see how pointless it all is and they wouldn't continue this stupid system.
It's not, I mean, he's also saying, well, if it ends, it's pointless. You know, I love to say this thing generally. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, No matter what, no one can take away the dances you've already had. We enjoy these things. We pass our stories on to our children. And if we shut our eyes and the world ends at the end of our life, or if we go on to some other place, it's still worth having love and joy while we're here. That's my view, but okay.
Right? So the system itself, the only way it can continue running is to get people to not see the truth, to hide the truth from them, basically, right? To manipulate them, to be consumers and all this shit, right? That's literally what it has to do to continue existing, right? It has to lie to you and push lies onto you and push addictions onto you and whatnot. So, anyways, okay. So, I think this is good. I know it's very rambly. I'm sorry. I'm just, I guess, I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. I think it's a decent explanation. It's all very rational. And one more thing
all very rational.
Because I know there's going to be like these assholes that like are like, oh, well, it's all about his feelings and whatnot. Like, yes, obviously, this is strong. I feel strongly about these things. Yes. Just because someone has feelings about something does not make it irrational, right? Obviously, the feelings are just your brain's way of making you aware of some computation it's done, right? So
This is how feelings work? A feeling is your brain's computation? I don't know. So sometimes feelings are, oh, that's hot. And it sends a signal from the heat to my brain, or maybe something feels like pleasure. And that sends a signal to my brain, not the other way around. Boy, he's really messed up.
Brain does some computation, and then it, based on the result, you see the outcome, the result, as a feeling, right? And now then, yes, obviously it's also important to then apply logic. So sit there and actively think about why you're feeling the way you're feeling, right? To make sure that it makes sense, right? And I've clearly done that, right? I've clearly sat here and thought a lot about my feelings and why I feel the way I do and whatnot. And so you really can't say like, oh, well, anyway, I'm just saying these assholes that say like, I guess people don't say this, but I can tell like a lot of people think this way. Like they don't like people who feel strongly about things. And it's just, fuck you. Fuck you. Such bullshit, you know? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I think that's good. I think that's enough. A little add-on bit here regarding
this is a part. Listen to this.
Just something I think is a really important argument, I guess, to make in regards to pro-mortalism for all the assholes that try to make it out to be evil or some bullshit like that, is that we're not the ones making death happen at all, right? All a pro-mortalist is saying is like, hey, let's make the death thing happen sooner rather than later in life, right?
That is the bad thing about pro-mortalism. Making the death happen sooner rather than later. That is the bad thing. And telling people to either kill themselves or killing them. That is the bad thing. Prolonging life is the good thing, dude.
We're just changing the date at which it happens. That's all we're trying to do, right? But you recognize that, once you exist, death is a guarantee, right? It's going to happen.
Again, you are so arrogant, as if you're the first person who realized this. Grapple with metaphysics, philosophy, law, religion. Read a book, dude. I guess it's too late. He's dead, but okay.
So the pro-mortalist isn't making a death happen. That's a bullshit way to think about it. That's a dishonest and untruthful way to think about it, right? The truth is the parents are the ones making the death happen, right?
Okay. He's got mommy and daddy issues too.
They're the ones making you exist in the first place, which then guarantees a death, okay? So parents are the real killers here, okay? They're the real ones imposing harm and suffering and some kind of death process onto people. All a pro-moralist is saying is, hey, let's make it happen sooner rather than later, so that way you experience less of life's bullshit, right? Less of this silly fucking zero-sum game.
Okay. Let's get to the end.
Right. So, yeah. Important argument, to make to people who again, try to make pro-moralism out to be evil or some bullshit like that. It's these people are just, if they hear this argument and they still disagree, they're being dishonest, basically. Because again, all this shit is really simple to understand.
And that is it. His last words, all this shit is simple to understand. And then he goes with a shit ton of explosives in his vehicle, drives to in front of the door of an infertility clinic, an IVF clinic, blows himself up and blows open that clinic, and it was on fire. One of the biggest bombing episodes in California, from what I'm hearing when I hear the FBI. And that's the mentality. He thinks he's figured it all out, and yet his own logic falls on itself. If his whole thing is about consent, then people who are here should have the consent to stay here. He wants to deprive them of that. So I wanted to share all of that with you because I think it's important to hear the logical problems, to understand what a murderer sounds like, and to get that there are really deranged and twisted people, adults, who are encouraging this. And some people have asked, why isn't this guy, Gary Mosier, arrested? Well, we do have the First Amendment, and I don't know that there's any evidence that he had any direct contact with these people, as far as I can see. And the fact that he says deranged, violent things about women does not constitute a crime. And I suppose I would want to keep my eye on him to see whether he was going to act out his own violent fantasies. But until then, I would warn you against him and wish you a good day. And I will see you tomorrow without any kind of twisted stuff like this, but with more money, law, and power news right here on Jen Taub Live. And have a great day. And thank you so much again to Deb and Jason, my fabulous mods. And I'm out.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.